Most people sacrifice their best years working 80-hour weeks and skipping vacations to build a legacy, only to realize their bank accounts are leaking faster than they can fill them. You think you're building wealth, but you're actually feeding a machine designed to profit from your ignorance. I'm King, and I am a financial strategist dedicated to unmasking the hidden forces keeping you broke. Today, I will expose the invisible investments you already own that are silently destroying your net worth, detailing the exact mechanisms of this massive wealth transfer. This is your personal blueprint to stop the bleed before the 2026 economic shift. So hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let's get cold and clinical. You need to understand that your financial stagnation is not an accident or a stroke of bad luck. It is a mathematical certainty. We are going to dissect the specific mechanics of how your wealth is being dismantled. Starting with what I call the mathematics of erosion, you likely look at your 401k or brokerage statement and see an expense ratio of 1%. To you, that sounds negligible. It is just 1 penny out of every dollar. You assume the other 99 cents are working hard for your retirement. You are wrong. Let's run the numbers. Imagine you have $100,000 invested, you leave it untouched for 30 years, assuming a conservative 7% average annual return. If you are paying a 0.05% fee, which is what a standard index fund charges, your portfolio grows to over $750,000. However, if you are tucked away in a managed fund with a 1% fee, you finish with roughly $570,000. Look at that gap. You didn't just lose 1% of your money, you lost nearly 30% of your total potential wealth to a middleman who provided zero additional value. You handed over nearly $200,000 of your future because you failed to respect a decimal point. That is not a fee, that is a heist. You are essentially working for the first 10 years of your retirement just to pay the guy who sold you the fund. Now, let's move to the mandated sinks. Every time you receive a paycheck, you see deductions for Social Security and Medicare. You are told this is a safety net, but for you, it is a forced opportunity cost. Between you and your employer, 12.4% of your income is funneled into a system with a projected return that would make a savings account look like a gold mine. If you took that same 12.4% and placed it into a total market index fund over a 40-year career, you wouldn't just have a safety net, you would have a multi-million-dollar dynasty. You're being forced to trade a mountain of private wealth for a molehill of government promise. You are participating in a pension scheme where the math only works if you die shortly after you stop working. Then we have the inflation tax. This is the most insidious because it doesn't require a vote, a signature, or a notification. If you believe the official narrative of a 4% annual inflation rate, you are witnessing the scheduled destruction of your labor. Using the rule of 72, the math is undeniable. At 4%, your purchasing power is cut exactly in half in just 18 years. Every dollar you have spent your youth accumulating will buy 50 cents worth of goods by the time you are ready to enjoy it. You are running on a treadmill that is accelerating while you are slowing down. If your salary isn't increasing by at least 5% every single year, you aren't staying level. You are getting a pay cut in real time. Finally, consider the convenience tax. These are the micro hemorrhages you've been conditioned to ignore. The $4 ATM fee to access your own capital. The 3% credit card processing surcharge that vendors quietly pass on to you. The delivery fees and service tips that turn a $15 lunch into a $30 liability. Individually, these are noise. Collectively, they are a structural failure. When you pay these fees, you aren't just losing $5, you are losing the compounding power of that $5 over the next 20 years. This is the logic anchor. You aren't just losing money, you are losing the time it took to earn it. When 30% of your portfolio vanishes into fees and half your purchasing power evaporates into inflation, you are being robbed of your freedom. You are working longer, not because you want to, but because the math is rigged against your complacency. Every decimal point you ignore is a year of your life you will never get back. Start counting. Take a long, hard look at your financial life for a moment. I want you to visualize it not as a spreadsheet or a bank balance, but as a magnificent ocean liner. This is a vessel you built with your own bare hands. You've spent decades in the shipyard of your career, welding the steel, riveting the plates, and painting the hull until it glistened. When you stand on the pier, you feel a justified sense of pride. To the outside world, you look sturdy, you look successful, you look like someone who has finally made it. You believe that as long as you keep the engines running and the compass pointed north, you are safe. But I need you to look beneath the waterline, down where the light doesn't reach and the water is cold. Attached to that beautiful hull are thousands upon thousands of microscopic parasites. These are barnacles you never asked for, yet they are there, boring tiny, relentless holes into your structural integrity. I call this the invisible vampire. It is a silent, predatory force that doesn't scream for your attention. It simply waits for you to go to sleep. Every hidden fee tucked away in the fine print of your retirement account, every overlooked liability you've chalked up as a cost of doing business, and every predatory interest rate you've ignored is a tiny needle drawing blood. You might think a 0.5% fee here or a subscription there doesn't matter, but when 10,000 needles are working at once, the volume of blood lost is staggering. This is why you feel that unexplained weight in your chest every Monday morning. You are suffering from financial anemia. You are working at maximum capacity, pushing your mind and body to the limit, yet you feel pale, weak, and perpetually drained. You're doing the work of a titan, but your results are being whispered away by the very systems you thought were designed to protect you. You have to ask yourself why you are so tired despite your high income. The answer isn't that you aren't working hard enough. It's that you are bleeding out through 1,000 cuts you can't see. You are fueling the engines with everything you have, but the invisible vampire is consuming the energy before it ever reaches the propellers. Now, let's talk about the neighbors. We've all been told about the trap of keeping up with the Joneses, but you likely think you're too smart to fall for it. You tell yourself your purchases are investments in your image or necessities for your family's comfort. In reality, you've spent years constructing a golden cage. It's beautiful, it's polished, and it's located in the right zip code. But here's the bitter truth. The bars of that cage are made of your own unspent potential. Every time you upgraded your lifestyle to match a peer who is just as financially anemic as you are, you added another bar to the door. You have traded your future freedom for the temporary approval of people who aren't even looking at you. They're too busy worrying about their own cages. This brings you to the wealth treadmill. You know exactly what this feels like. You remember thinking that if you could just hit that 6-figure mark or that mid-6-figure mark, you would finally be able to breathe. You hit the target, but the breathing never got easier. Instead, the treadmill simply sped up. You are running faster and faster, sweat pouring down your face, your heart rate redlining just to stay in the exact same place on the floor. You've doubled your income in the last decade, yet your net worth hasn't moved an inch in real terms. You are trapped in a cycle of high-performance stagnation. You are a world-class sprinter on a machine that is bolted to the ground. The frustration you feel isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of your intuition trying to save you. You know deep down that the math doesn't add up. Like you see the years slipping by and you realize that someday is becoming an increasingly expensive lie. You're terrified that if you stop running for even a second, you'll be thrown off the back of the machine. What is the ultimate destination of this treadmill? It's a hollow retirement. We've been sold a dream of a golden sunset, but for most high earners who ignore the invisible vampire, that sunset is a mirage. Imagine reaching the age of 65, exhausted, and ready to finally enjoy the ship you built, only to realize the barnacles have finally won. You look into your accounts and find a shell of what should have been there. You realize you spent 30 years working for the bank, the credit card companies, and the luxury brands, while you were merely the delivery driver for your own wealth. You fear the day you have to look your spouse in the eye and admit that despite the fancy titles and the long hours, there is nothing left but the cage. You fear the realization that your progress wasn't just stalled. It was an illusion. You've been a passenger on your own ship while the vampire steered it toward the rocks. This isn't just about money. It's about the theft of your life force. It's about the fact that you are trading the only non-renewable resource you have, your time, for a lifestyle that is slowly bleeding you dry. You deserve better than a life of high-earning poverty. You deserve a ship that actually sails. It's time to stop feeding the parasites and start reclaiming the steel. You are now entering the surgical strike phase. We are moving past the abstract theory of economic cycles and stepping directly into the cockpit of your financial life. This is where you stop being a passenger in your own retirement account and start acting as the lead architect of your fortress. You've spent years following the traditional script, assuming that the experts have your best interests at heart. They don't. They have their commissions at heart. This roadmap is designed to dismantle their grip on your wealth and return that power to you. This is cold, calculated, and entirely focused on your bottom line. Step 1 is the fee audit. You need to open your laptop, log into your 401k or brokerage portal, and hunt for a document called the prospectus. Wall Street makes these documents intentionally dry and exhausting because they count on your boredom to hide their theft. You are looking for one specific phrase, the expense ratio. You will likely see numbers like 1.2% or 1.5%. To the uninitiated, that sounds like a tiny fraction. To you, it must look like a hole in your gas tank. Over a 30-year career, a 1% difference in fees can strip away up to 1/3 of your total ending balance. You are effectively paying for your broker's summer home while you settle for a smaller one. You must also identify the administrative fees, those vague recurring charges for the privilege of them holding your money. And if your total cost of ownership is over 0.5%, you are being robbed in broad daylight. You need to document every cent they take. This is your baseline. This is the leak we are about to plug. Step 2 is the index migration. Once you've identified the high-cost, actively managed mutual funds you've been sold, you are going to execute a migration. Active management is a vanity project sold as prestige. Statistically, over 90% of these funds fail to beat the broader market over a decade. You are paying a premium for a manager to underperform. You are going to move your capital into low-cost exchange-traded funds, or ETFs. Think of the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF or the S&P 500 Index. These funds often carry expense ratios as low as 0.03%. You aren't just saving money, you are opting for the cold, efficient math of the entire market rather than the ego of a fund manager. This migration turns you from a victim of closet indexing into a direct owner of the world's most productive companies at a fraction of the cost. Step 3 is your inflation hedge. As we look toward 2026, the purchasing power of your dollar is under a sustained assault. You cannot simply save your way to safety. You must protect your real value. You will look into treasury bills and I-bonds. T-bills are the short-term tactical weapon of choice when interest rates are high, allowing you to park cash with zero risk and a guaranteed yield that actually keeps pace with reality. I-bonds are your long-term defensive shield, specifically designed to adjust their interest rate based on inflation. Beyond that, you must look at diversified assets, real estate, or commodities that historically move in the opposite direction of a failing currency. You aren't speculating. You are insuring your future self against the government's propensity to print money. Step 4 is the subscription purge. This is the tactical method for identifying and killing recurring convenience fees. This is death by 1,000 cuts. You need to pull your bank statements from the last 90 days and highlight every recurring charge. The $14.99 streaming service you don't watch, the $40 gym membership you don't use, and the premium app versions that do nothing for your productivity. These are parasites. They exist because humans are biologically wired to forget small recurring pains. You're going to cancel them all. If you truly miss one, you can buy it back in 30 days. Most of the time, you won't. This isn't about being cheap. It's about hygiene. You are cleaning the barnacles off the hull of your ship so you can move faster. These small convenience fees are the silent killers of your savings rate. Step 5 is debt restructuring. You must view consumer debt as a high-interest invisible liability that makes you a slave to the lender. If you are carrying a credit card balance at 24% interest, you are in a financial emergency. No investment on earth will consistently return 24% to offset that loss. You need to aggressively attack these liabilities using the avalanche method, targeting the highest interest rate first while maintaining minimums on the rest. You are not managing this debt, you are destroying it. Every dollar of high interest debt you pay off is a guaranteed tax-free return on your money. It is the single most effective investment you can make today. To facilitate this, you can download the tactical checklist provided below. This is your scorecard. You will check off each fee found, each fund migrated, and each subscription purged. The goal of this entire roadmap is to increase your savings rate without needing to ask your boss for a raise. By optimizing what you already have, you effectively give yourself a 10 to 20% increase in investable capital. You are no longer a victim of invisible investments or the convenience trap. You are now a proactive architect. You are building a financial fortress that is lean, efficient, and resilient against whatever the 2026 economy decides to throw at you. This isn't just about money, it's about the autonomy that comes when you finally know exactly where every single one of your dollars is going and exactly what it is doing for you. Stop being the fuel for the machine. Become the mechanic. Let's get one thing straight. True wealth is never determined by how many zeros appear on your paycheck. That is a vanity metric, a shiny distraction designed to keep you running on a hamster wheel while the walls of your cage are built higher. Real wealth is measured by what stays. It is about how much you keep and, more importantly, how fiercely you protect it from the invisible hands constantly reaching into your pockets. Every uncanceled subscription, every predatory fee, and every convenience charge is a calculated assault on your financial sovereignty. To reclaim your net worth, you must undergo a radical identity shift. You are no longer a passive passenger in your financial life. You are the vigilant captain of your vessel. Financial institutions have spent billions on psychological research to ensure you stay in a state of comfortable ignorance. They want you to fall into the trap of believing that these small leaks don't matter, but you must understand that in the cold, unforgiving ocean of finance, it is never the giant waves that destroy the most sophisticated ships. It is the small, neglected holes in the hull. When you ignore the small stuff, you aren't being laid back. You are being negligent. You are essentially handing over the keys to your financial future to corporations that view you as nothing more than a recurring revenue stream. You must choose right now to be the person who values their future freedom more than their current convenience or the hollow praise of social validation. This isn't just about money, it's about power. It's about breaking the cycle of complacency that the entire financial services industry relies on to stay profitable. They need you to be tired. They need you to be distracted. They need you to find it too difficult to click a few buttons and secure your capital. When you shift your identity from a mindless consumer to a disciplined protector of your own labor, the world looks different. You stop seeing a $10 recurring charge as an insignificant expense and start seeing it for what it truly is, a parasite. You realize that every dollar you stop from leaking out is a soldier you have successfully rescued to fight for your long-term independence. You are no longer someone who hopes they have enough at the end of the month. You are someone who knows exactly where every cent is because you understand that your attention is the highest form of currency you possess. Protect it with everything you have, because if you don't value your own money, you can be certain that no one else will. If you are still here, it means you have the discipline required to actually change your trajectory. Comment the word sovereign below so I know you are part of the elite who actually listens to the end. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you are serious about taking control of your life. I'm King, and I'll see you in the next video.